Sometimes what you find is worse than what you first thought. As I lay in the dark, looking at the ceiling, I decided it was somewhere around 2 in the morning. I stood up, looked at the bars, and thought how much my life had changed in less than 24 hours. You see, I was in a holding cell at the 3rd police station in the city center. I am accused of damaging personal property and threatening with an aluminum bat. This morning, my wife and sister tried to post bail for me, but I told the jailer that I had agreed otherwise and that they should leave. I was afraid that if I saw them, I would cause them bodily harm, so I sat here, cooling my heels, wondering what my next move would be. My name is Steve Moore. I am 39, soon to be 40 years old. I work for Ace Insurance Company as a property appraiser. I've been working there for 12 years now and making pretty decent money. Sue, my wife of 17 years, works in an office downtown, and we have one son, Kevin, who is also 17 and can be very difficult at times. You see, we are a typical suburban family and quite happy. That was until yesterday. We had a date night, or should I say a weekend away, scheduled for Saturday and Sunday this week. You see, a couple times a year, my wife would send our son to her parents for the weekend and we would have 2 days to ourselves. Suey started doing this a while ago so we could have time to reconnect with each other. She usually went out with my sister and a few friends on Friday night and returned shortly before midnight. Then everything began in earnest. I think if I told you that she was going to have sex with me to death all weekend, you'd understand what I was waiting for. I was in charge of the food, and Sue did everything else. To keep everything fresh, we changed the topic each time. One time it was edibles, another it was a dress-up night. And the last time was a fantastic weekend, which I really enjoyed. This weekend, we did something we had never done in our 17 years of marriage. I couldn't wait for Friday night. Sue, I'm planning chocolates for Friday night, a buffet for Saturday, and some ribs for Sunday when Kevin gets home, I told her when I got home from work on Wednesday. I took a couple of bottles of wine that we like and we'll leave them in the refrigerator. This way we won't have to bother with the ice bucket, she said, putting everything away. We had a nice dinner on Wednesday and Thursday. Kevin talked nonstop about how his grandparents were taking him to Six Flags and how much fun he was going to have there. Go easy on them, honey, my wife told our son. Remember that they are not as young as they used to be, and I don't want you to stuff your face and get sick on the rides, do you hear me? She warned him. They gathered in Thursday evening, and by 9 o'clock he was ready to go. I told Cindy I wanted to be home by 11:30 Friday night, Sue told me. I really need this weekend. It's been so hectic lately. It will be great to relax and have some fun without interruption. She smiled at me. I don't plan on wearing clothes all weekend. I don't think you'll mind, she said as I started chasing her around our bedroom. This will work perfectly. I'm meeting with a new client on Friday, and if he signs the contract, we'll have something to celebrate, I told Sue. Well, save your energy because you'll need it this weekend, she told me, trying to get ready for bed when I grabbed her hand. You know the rules. No sex today. Tomorrow night you will get all you can, she told me. On Thursday evening, I couldn't sleep for a long time. A couple of times I snuck in to kiss and touch Sue a little. She told me to go back to my side of the bed and go to sleep. Eventually, I got over to my side and fell asleep. I knew it would be a busy Friday, so I got up early. I kissed my wife while she was still in the shower, grabbed her ass, and ran out of the bathroom before she could throw the wet washcloth she was holding at me. I went downstairs, hugged my son, and told him to behave this weekend, and we'll see each other on Sunday night. He took off, and for the last time, not caring about anything in the world, rushed along the road. This morning, everyone was in a good mood. And how could it be otherwise? Because it was Friday and payday. I reviewed the proposal I was to submit later in the day, and finally received approval from my superiors after 2 minor changes. It was about a proposal to insure a boarding house outside the city. The boarding house cost about $10,000, and the policy would give our company a good boost in development, especially in the current economy. Don't screw it up, my boss Tom said around 3:30. What time do you meet them? He asked. He wants me there around 6 hours so we can look at rooms after they check in Friday's guests, I told him. What freedom of action do I have regarding numbers? I asked. Not much. If necessary, you can reduce it by 3%, but no more. Don't worry, I won't leave without a signature, I told him. I hung around the office and left around 5:30. It was only a 25-minute drive to the city center, but it was a scenic drive along the lake, so I took my time and enjoyed the view. I arrived at the boarding house at about 10 minutes past 5 and looked through the rooms again before going inside. "Steve, you made it," Rick said, holding out his hand. "How was the ride?" "Wonderful. Your place is truly wonderful," I told him. "It's probably very quiet here at night?" I asked. "Except for the loons and owls, you could hear a pin drop. Many people come here just to get away for the weekend. We are close to the city, but far enough away so as not to feel the bustle of the city. There is no televisión, radio, or cable in the rooms, so there are no distractions. Our restaurant is open until 8 Nace and there's music in the lounge until midnight," Rick told me. "Looks like you have your own little gold mine here," I told him. "Are you ready to look at some numbers?" I asked it, and that's exactly what we did for the next hour. He showed me around, we tweaked a few things, and by 7:30 we came to an agreement. In the end, I gave him a discount of about 1.25%, but I was well within the acceptable range. He signed, I signed, and his wife notarized the agreement. "I'm glad it's over," he told me. "How about dinner before we go back and maybe a bottle of wine to celebrate our new agreement?" asked Rick. I agreed, and we went to the corner of the restaurant and sat in a separate booth. "There aren't very many people here," I said, just making small talk. "It's still a little early. Most people get here by 7, wow, and my wife usually gets everyone in their rooms by 8:30. If you love meat, try the steak. It's amazing, and my chef grills it to perfection. We had a great meal and enjoyed each other's company. I'd like to have a place like this," I told him. "Looks like there's a lot to do here, but it's also a lot of fun. I love people, and running something like this, or B&B, I would like it. In our economy, business is difficult and we make money, but not very much. If we didn't live here and do 95% of the work ourselves, we would never have made it. But I like what I do. I was full, and I don't know how I finished this steak. Also refused dessert and only sipped a little brandy after dinner. It's time for me to go," I told him when we decided to take one last tour of this place. At that moment, my life as I knew it ended. We were standing in the doorway of the living room watching the dancing couples when I thought I recognized someone. I was looking at a certain couple when Rick said, "These are the Carrolls. They come here a couple times a year for dinner and then hit the dance floor. I would love to hold something like that in my hands now," he told me. I would also, I thought to myself, because if my eyes weren't deceiving me, it was my wife Sue with her old college boyfriend, Bill Carroll. When they turned and walked back to their table, I was convinced of this. So it was Sue and Cindy's bachelorette party, I told myself. I watched them laugh, drink, and return to the dance floor for a slow number. The only reason I didn't run straight over there and attack the two of them was because I was standing next to Rick and had to at least appear professional. "Rick, I need to get home. I have a lot of things to do for the evening and it's almost 10. I want to thank you again for your business, and I know that you will not regret choosing our company," I told him, walking away from the door. "Pick a weekend and bring your wife. You will be my guests. A weekend here will do wonders for your love life," he said, winking at me. "I can guarantee it." We shook hands again. I got into the car and drove away. I returned to the city in a daze. "How long the hell?" was the first question. Sue was dating Bill when we first met in class. They had been together for about 2 years, and what started as a lively discussion in sociology class turned into a lunch or two in the student union and, finally, dinner. She rushed between Bill and me until I put an end to it. "Sue, make up your mind. Either he or I won't share you," I presented her with my ultimatum. She left him after 2 weeks, and we immediately became a couple. Hell, we had sex like rabbits on our first date. We went to Outback Steakhouse and spent Saturday and all day Sunday in bed. Less than a month had passed before Sue learned that she was in her mother's form. Hell, at that moment there was not even a question of what to do. I made sure proposal. I stand on my knees with Grandma's ring in hand. She agreed, and a month later we became husband and wife. Do I regret that everything turned out this way? Not really. I had the woman of my dreams, and 8 months later, we had a bouncing baby. Everyone helped, and we did great. We weren't rich, but we were happy nonetheless. And so, everything went from the very first day. Even after all these years, we still found time to do this at least 3 times a week, and I always considered myself a happily married man. I was not mistaken and believed that my wife believed the same. That was the case until an hour or so ago. Sue wasn't home when I arrived, thank God. I went to the computer and Googled Bill Carroll. Computers are wonderful. There is a wealth of information available with just a few keystrokes. Take Bill, for example. Now, I know that he lives about 45 minutes away from us, in the same city as ours. After checking his name and address, I discovered that he was married to Ruth. If he has a wife, what the hell is he doing with mine, and how long has this been going on? I asked myself. I found out the address and decided to pay Bill a quick visit. I went upstairs and started to change into something more casual when my anger boiled over. I threw the suit on the floor and punched the bedroom door. "That fucking bitch!" I screamed. No wonder she didn't want to fool around on Thursday night. She wanted to be fresh for her lover, my brain told me over and over again. I grabbed the mattress, dragged it up the stairs, and threw it out the front door. A little gas from the garage, and he was ready. I took off the wedding ring, skin and all, because it was very tight, and with the help of a butcher knife, I secured it on the kitchen table so that she could not miss it. Then I took my jacket, closed the door to my ideal marriage, and walked out onto the front lawn. I flicked the lighter and set the mattress on fire, got into the car, and headed to the next stop. The door was opened by my sister Cindy's husband, David. "Hey, Steve, the girls aren't back yet, but come in," he told me. "Would you like a beer?" he said, going to the refrigerator and getting me a cold beer. "That would be great," I told him. "Where did the girls say they were going?" I asked him. Cindy didn't tell me anything. She just said she'd be home by 11:30 and that's it. I looked at my watch, it was already close to it. "What do you need from Cindy? Maybe I can help you," he said, trying to be helpful. "No, this is between me and Cindy," I told him, trying to contain the anger that was eating me up from the inside. We chatted for about 20 minutes before we heard Cindy's car pull into the garage. When she entered the kitchen, she was a little surprised to see me. "Hey, brother, I thought you would be at home waiting for Sue," she said, coming up to me. Neither she nor David expected what happened next. Cindy was getting up from the floor, rubbing her cheek, and David was yelling at me, asking what the hell was wrong with me when I finally spoke. "Don't ever talk to me, call me, or even email me again. You are dead to me from this day forward. Do you understand?" I was screaming at her when David grabbed my face. "David, leave him alone," was all she said. "Stevie, it's not what you think. I can explain," she began to say, until I stopped her. "Explain what, Cindy? How have you lied to me, and even to David, all this time? I don't want to hear another damn thing from your story. Do you hear me? Never in a million years did I think my own sister would do this to me," I said as I walked out of their house and listened to David yell at her, asking her what the hell was going on as she started crying. All I heard as I pulled away was David still asking her what the hell I was talking about. For me, however, this no longer mattered. It took me almost 50 minutes to reach my final stop for the evening. I checked the address, got out of the car, and opened the trunk. Pulling out Kevin's almost new aluminum bat, I proceeded to break all the windows of the car in the driveway, including the headlights. By this time, the lights in the house had come on, and Bill opened the front door. "What the hell are you doing? Are you crazy?" "I already called 911 and you better leave before they get here," he shouted at me. "Come out here, Bill, and we can handle this like a man, unless you remain the same coward you always were." "Hey, asshole, does your wife know you're cheating on her? Maybe we should just swap wives and everything will be even," I shouted to the whole world, approaching the front door. Bill slammed and locked the door, but that didn't stop me. I broke out the etched glass window at the top of the door and the lights on both sides when I heard the siren of police cars approaching. I dropped the bat, raised my arms above my head, and walked towards them. One of them handcuffed me, and the other went up into the house to make sure everyone was okay. I saw Bill talking to him and his wife peeking out from behind the curtains. I shouted again, "Tell your wife what a good wife I have, Bill. I think she'll be interested to know where you were tonight," I said, looking straight at her. I was thrown into the backseat of a patrol car and driven into town. It was too late to do anything today, but tomorrow, I was told, I would be able to post bail after the arraignment. And here I am, sitting in a cell and thinking about what will happen next in my life. My only sister was now dead to me because she had been covering for Sue all this time. The worst thing is that I didn't even expect this. It seemed like I was happy, woozy, and trusting. The next 4 hours gave me enough time to realize that this had been going on for at least a year, and possibly more. I think that sex on weekends was a cover for the fact that she cheated on me. By 6 o'clock in the morning, I had calmed down significantly. I was still mad as hell, but the initial shock had worn off. On Saturday morning, I appeared before the judge and heard the charges. My bail was set at $20,500, and I was allowed one call. I called my boss, Tom. "What the hell's going on?" Tom asked when he paid my bail. "What have you done?" I told him the short version as he drove with his mouth open, not believing a word I said. "Where do you want me to drop you off?" he asked. I gave him Bill's address because I was hoping my car was still there, and it was. I wanted to ring the bell and start over, but I knew I didn't want to spend another night in jail. I saw the curtains move, but this time, no one came to the door. There was no way I could get home, so I just checked into the Holiday Inn closest to work. Breakfast at Denny's almost brought me back to life, or at least filled my empty belly. Last night, I wanted answers, but now I didn't care. I turned on my cell phone and there were 5 messages from my sister and 10 from Sue. I listened to one in which my sister told me that nothing is as it seems and that I should call Sue because she was worried about me. It's a little late, I thought to myself. Sue had much the same thing. "Please call me so I can explain everything," she begged through tears, but I was in no mood to talk to her. I deleted all remaining messages and turned off the phone. I got drunk on Sunday, but not before going out and buying a few things to wear to work on Monday. For the past 8 years, I haven't drunk more than 4 bottles of beer at a time, but today, I managed to finish almost 12 bottles. Everything was fine until I vomited everything in my stomach and passed out on the bathroom floor. That's the kind of drinker I was. On Monday, I was a little late for work, and as I walked past Tom's office, he stopped me. "You look like crap, but given the circumstances, I can't blame you," he told me. "If there's anything I can do, just let me know," he said. I handed him the signed contract. "At least something good came out of Friday night," I smiled weakly at him. "I told the secretary to check your calls and take messages for the next few days, and security won't let your wife in until you give the go-ahead. So, grab a cup of coffee and tell me what you had to give to get the signature on Friday," Tom told me. Monday was difficult. I was busy rewriting a new contract and sending it to the corporation. I received a lot of praise, but it didn't make me feel any better. The security said that they didn't let Sue in and asked if I wanted to keep Sue out. I answered yes. I rarely traveled, but the one thing I hated about traveling was eating alone. No matter how delicious the food was, eating alone was unpleasant. Instead of Denny's, I went to Olive Garden tonight. I sat at a table for 2 at the back of the restaurant and ate well, but would have been better off with a bottle of wine. I didn't like to drink. But in the last 2 days, I've consumed 2 weeks' worth of alcohol, and it hasn't improved my mood one bit. On Monday evening, I started making plans. I didn't trust Sue, and with my luck, she would drain our savings and checking accounts. I took out my laptop and went to the site. No, the means, thank God, were in place. I wrote down that tomorrow at lunch I will take half and open a new account. My medical bill couldn't be changed, but the company insurance policy and 401k definitely could. I would transfer both to Kevin if anything happened to me. When the phone rang, I remembered that I forgot to turn it off after checking my messages. The call I answered was from my father. "Okay, where the hell are you?" he asked. "I think we've moved beyond the hello and how are you stages." "At a motel near work," I answered. "Do you know that I have 2 crazy women in my house now? They cry and tell me and your mother that what you saw on Friday night was not what it seemed," he said seriously. "I can't understand what they're saying, only that Cindy and Sue have been lying through their teeth for a long time. Are you in the mood to come here tonight and sort this out?" asked my father. "Not really. I saw what I saw, and Sue can't say anything to explain it. I'm sorry they got you involved in my beef, Dad, but if you had seen what I saw and it had been Mom, you would have kicked her to the curb, too. I just feel bad for Kevin. They're going to put him in the fucking middle," I told him. "Well, son, do what you have to do and call your mom this week. She's upset about all this." I thanked him and apologized again for putting him and my mom in the middle, especially because of Cindy, but reminded him that it was their actions that brought this on themselves. I hung up and turned off the phone. The rest of the week was miserable. I had received 1,000,000 messages from Cindy and Sue, but now I just deleted them without even bothering to read them. I planned to call my mom or stop by on free day only if Cindy wasn't there. I called my son on Thursday night, and he said that Mom was overwhelmed and hadn't gone to work all week. He told me that his mom asked if he talked to me to tell me that she loved me and that she needed to see me. I thanked him for the message but told him it wouldn't happen. "What did Mom do?" my son asked me. I asked my mom and all she told me was that she was dating someone from her past, that's all. After that she started crying again, and that was the end of it, he told me. I told him I'd probably see him this weekend, but couldn't say when. I knew I would have to meet Sue eventually, but I wasn't looking forward to it. Saturday was incredibly boring. I spent extra hours at work and became completely absorbed in my own affairs. There was nothing on TV, and I was tired of sitting under the sauce, so I decided to take a chance and went home. "Damn," was all I said when I saw Sue's car in the garage. Screw it. I needed a couple changes of clothes, so I didn't hesitate and went into the house. Kevin was in the kitchen making dinner, and I gave him a big hug. "You know Mom is upstairs, don't you?" he said, almost expecting me to rush out the door. "I can't hide forever," I told him, getting myself a cup of coffee. He brought me up to date and asked if I was going to return home. "I don't think that will happen, at least not in the near future," I answered him. "But if this happens, you will be the first to know about it," I said, trying to smile. I finished my coffee and decided to go upstairs to get this over with. When I went up the stairs, I heard that nothing was coming from our bedroom. I opened the door and entered. What a mess. Sue was fast asleep on the covers and wearing sweatpants. Her hair was dirty and greasy, and she just looked terrible. I walked over to my closet, opened the door, and started pulling out a few things, at which point Sue woke up. "You're back," she shouted. "Not for long, I just came in to grab a few things," I told her as she sat up on the bed. "I missed you," she said, now with tears in her eyes. "What's the matter? Bill doesn't give you enough," I said sarcastically. "Steve, you have to believe that I never slept with him," she said seriously. "I only saw him a couple of times a year and only at dinner." "Sue, I was there. I saw you. Why can't you, for once in your life, stop lying? You laughed, drank, and danced with him. What was it? Did I dream this? All I know is that it was my worst nightmare in my life," I told her. "So just go to bed and I'll take my things and get out of your hair, and you can do whatever you want with Bill for all I care. Maybe you can have a threesome with his wife, then she won't feel left out," I shouted to her. "His wife already knows and has known for a whole year," she answered, now looking at the floor. "And she doesn't care? What kind of dumb shit is she?" I asked. "She may not mind sharing, but I definitely want to," she shouted. "Sue, I don't need this crap. Do what you want. I don't care anymore," I said, going back to choosing clothes for the next week. "Steve, I have to tell you something, and I know you'll hate me for not telling you sooner, but I've already been hiding it from you for too long," Sue said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Do you remember when that girl was kidnapped in January last year? At Kevin's school, they created a bank of identification data for each student. They did a swab, took a clump of hair and fingerprints. I thought it was a great idea, but when I provided his blood type information from my home file, I noticed something. Without your knowledge, I did several tests and found out something terrible, she said, sobbing. Kevin's okay, isn't he? I asked, now more than worried. Yes, but I learned something I never knew, she said, stopping. And? I asked. What did you find out, Sue? I asked again. Now she was crying openly. I found out that you weren't Kevin's father, she said, sinking onto the bed. I was in shock, leaning against the dresser, and I thought it couldn't get any worse. Are you sure? Have you checked this? I asked furiously. I took the tests twice, and both times the results were the same, she told me. I found the only person I had sex with, and when he sent a cheek swab, the result was positive. I'm so sorry, Steve. I never knew that, she said as she continued to cry. Let me guess. Bill is his father, I said, as if trying to spit out some nasty stuff. He wanted to meet Kevin and talk to him, but I refused. I made a deal with him to keep him in the shadows. I will meet with him a couple of times a year and give him full information, including photos and such, to keep him quiet. Bill was very happy about the birth of the boy because he and his wife had 2 girls. Bill told his wife about Kevin, and she made him promise not to show up or tell Kevin who he really was if he wanted to stay married to her. Sue, you left Bill and started dating me. What the hell were you doing, sleeping with both of us? I asked. When Bill came to get the rest of his things, he was all upset that I left him for you. We drank a little, and the next moment I realized that we were already in bed. I swear to God it was the only time, and I didn't know Kevin was his. You have to believe me, she begged. And Cindy knew all about it? I asked. I told her and asked what I should do. She said, you will go crazy, and that will be the end of our marriage and family. She told me to give Bill what he wanted and to keep my mouth shut. That way, no one will know. Sorry, Steve, I told her you wouldn't leave us. But she said you hate Bill so much, you'll disown Kevin and me. I don't know why I didn't trust my instincts, she told me. So you've been dating him since last year behind my back and used my sister to cover for you? Is that something like that? I asked. Sue simply nodded, looking at the floor. After 17 years, you didn't trust me enough to tell me, and instead, you decided to lie to me. What was this special weekend like? Were they just to make you feel better about lying to me? You make me sick, Sue, I said, almost spitting at her. No, Steve. They started much earlier than I knew. It was our weekend, no one else's. Please believe me, she said, reaching out to me. Don't touch me. Don't ever touch me again, I shouted at her. Our whole marriage was a fucking lie. I thought everything was bad when I thought you were cheating on me. Now I found out that my son is, in fact, not my son. Why didn't you just put a bullet in my head? Kevin already knows, I asked. No, I didn't tell him, and there's no need for him to know. You are his father and always will be. Bill is just a sperm. You taught him to ride a bike, play baseball, and gave him his first car. You're more of a father than Bill could ever be. He must never know Bill. There are only 4 people in the world who know, and none of us will tell him. You will always be his father. No one will know. So now you want me to start lying too? Not only did you drag my sister into your sordid lies, now you want to drag me into it too. This won't happen. I'll have to do it myself. He has the right to know who his biological father is. Everyone has the right. You're right. He will always be my son if that's what he wants. He has my last name, and I wouldn't change that for anything, I told her. However, you will continue to bear my last name for about 3 more months. I plan to divorce your lying ass ASAP. If you had come to me a year ago and told me what you found out, we probably would have managed it. It might be difficult for a while, but mistakes happen. The fact that you lied and deceived me for the past year is unforgivable. You didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth, and when there is no trust in a marriage, there is no marriage. You ruined a good marriage. And for what? Dinner, a little dancing, and a lot of lies. Like I told my sister, I never want to talk to you again. You're dead in my eyes, I said, walking down the stairs to the kitchen. "Kev, it's time for you and I to talk a little," I told him. "Dad, if it comes to sex, then I know everything," he answered. "Well, maybe not all," I said, pulled up a chair and began to tell him a story about the birds and the bees.